Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris, alongside Colton Dodgson, although his screen avatar is showing someone different. Uh,
Yeah,
it's great to be back, man.
yeah. Great to be back with you, Mark. It's been a couple weeks. My camera on this laptop has, unfortunately, I think taken a dive for good. So I decided I'd honor one of the more underrated characters in television history. One of my top five, probably Stevie Janowski. Maybe we'll switch it up every week, but I'm going with Stevie in his all black attire for this episode.
Okay. Well, it's better than your original screen background of our first episode that showed the 2014 ASU team losing
Yeah,
at Corvallis.
yeah,
It's
no, that
way
was
better than
something
that.
else. That was something else I tried. Some of the iconic moments in ASU history. Unfortunately, that was a finite run. I think there's only so many you can go with, but who knows? Maybe something similar will make a comeback here. We'll go with Stevie today, and I'll mix it up. We'll see who we've got for next week.
I can't wait. Well, before we get into this show, wanted to remind everyone to like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice, and remember to follow the College Huddle at Twitter. That's at College Huddle, and their website is the College Huddle for other uh, great college football fan podcasts out there. And with that, let's get this show going. So ASU hosts the Wyoming Cowboys on Saturday night at Mountain America Stadium to open their season. This is a game ASU should win because they are 7 to 7.5 point favorites among most sports books. I'm looking on ESPN, and ESPN Bet has ASU favored by exactly 7 points. So this is a game that ASU should win, but Wyoming is a real team. This is not the equivalent of facing Southern Utah last year. Wyoming is like if ASU played Wyoming last year, they would have lost to Wyoming. So this is a team that beat Texas Tech in Laramie last year to open the year. They beat Appalachian State. They went 8-4 in the regular season and won a bowl game. So it's a pretty good team. They did lose some guys, including their head coach Craig Bowl, their starting quarterback. I believe his name was Andrew Peasley. And then for this game specifically, they won't have their top rusher Harrison Whaley, and he rushed for like 950 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. So he's a legit player. But it will obviously not be an easy game for sure. So, Colton, as I intro that, what are your opening thoughts on this game against Wyoming?
One thing that stands out is I think ASU's a little beat up coming into this game. I keep seeing updates about guys who, are ways away from playing. I know Ray League Brown comes into mind. I think Kenny Dillingham called him doubtful, who was the guy that I was
Yeah,
most excited to see, and I still will be most excited to see play eventually when he gets on the field. But you're right. I think last year and in years past, ASU gets one of those FBS or I'm sorry, FCS schools or less than heralded Division One or FBS schools to start the season, and then this time around you're starting with a Mountain West opponent, um, who was a formidable team last year. I mean, obviously you've got some roster turnover, some coaching turnover, that sort of thing, but it is a test right out of the gate, um,
absolutely.
a more legitimate test than the Southern Utah, which I mean, obviously weird game, but that wasn't the blowout people expected even before the Haboob delay. But um, definitely a game where you're going to have to be ready to go. You're not going to have the margin for error you typically have in season openers. Sam Levitt's going to have to come out sharp in his first start, and
Yep.
I'm excited to see who starts to ascend a little bit, starts to make themselves stand out in this game because you always see that, and that's the benefit to playing a legitimate group of five
Yeah.
conference team, right? Is you're not looking at the results of this game for better or worse and thinking, oh, hey, it's a Southern Utah or it's NAU. This is a legitimate team. So what happens in this game? There's something you can build off here. It's not like some preseason tune-up sort of deal. So I'm excited to see kind of what we get. We'll get to know more quickly than we typically have what they look like and what has translated from the offseason into real game action. But unfortunately, the wait for some of those guys, especially Rayleigh Brown, for me, is going to have to wait a little longer.
Yeah, that's unfortunate with some of the injuries. So here, let's go over the injuries first. So this is from Chris Cartman earlier this week. So there's four notable players that won't play in this game. So starts out, linebacker Tate Romney is out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken arm. Defensive end Prince Dorba is likely to miss first 2 to 4 games with a leg injury. Offensive lineman Sean Na'a is in the same spot as Dorba. And then, as you mentioned, Rayleigh Brown, he is close to coming back, but won't be back for this game, which I think I think that's smart. Don't rush Rayleigh Brown back, especially since we've just the theme, or one of the themes of this show this offseason, is like this running back room is good and it's deep. So do not there's them playing Rayleigh Brown in this game would be idiocy. It just would be it's not like he's the only good running back you have. So
100%. No, it is smart.
It just
I
sucks. Yeah.
completely agree with that. Yeah, it's somebody where this dude's going to be a weapon when he is on the field,
Yes.
But you're 100% right. I think that's why something we've hit on so often over the course of the offseason is this idea of depth, and not only depth, but quality depth. And ASU, I think running back is probably among the top
Number
positions
one. Yeah.
that ASU has that quality depth at. So you're right. Pumping the brakes until he's 100% is definitely smart. Now you just hope you can not. I mean, you're 7.5 point favorite depending on the book. Just winning outright seems to be heavily favored, obviously. So make that happen and then figure it out from there.
For sure. And I want to go over the other three. So Romney, so I think Brown, just because we know he's coming back soon, and then Romney, even though Romney's out for a good bit, like he can miss half the season. But the difference is Romney wasn't scheduled to be a starter, right? Like with the linebackers they brought in, I'm not worried about his absence as a long-term thing. Dorba and Na'a are definitely, you'd love to have those guys out there for sure. The difference is, or not the difference, you just mentioned the depth. Like with Dorba, you have Elijah O'Neal who's backing him up, and he's had a really good camp. And then Kate Briggs was either him or Na'a competing for the right guard spot. And so I'm sure the coaches would have liked Na'a to, be the starter there, but going to Briggs isn't that bad of an option considering he played last year and was already competing for the job anyway. So I think in this specific game, you would rather have Na'a out there just because Wyoming is a good stingy defense. And you'd just rather have him out or him available at least. And then I think Dorba's presence will be more missed week 2 against Mississippi State because Wyoming's just more of a run first team. And so he's more of like your pure pass rusher type guy. And so I think Dorba will be more missed against Mississippi State. So I guess you could, I don't know. I'm kind of struggling how to look at the injury situation because on one hand, you would just love to have them all out there, but it's not like if Jordan Tyson were out or if Keyshawn Elliott, linebacker, were out, I think you can get by with Dorba and Na'a being the only ones projected starters missing, at least early on. So
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world, but it's also less. I mean, it's not ideal, So something to watch for sure.
100%. It'll be good to get all those guys back, but you kind of at the top hit the nail on the head with the cautious approach is going to pay off, especially as you progress through a season and a schedule where you're obviously playing some really good teams, but you have more of a shot, and we've talked about this before. You have more of a shot in the Big 12 to beat some of these teams than you did in the Pac 12 to beat the top teams in that conference last season. So This is a season where keeping those guys on the field for as long as possible is the most important thing, especially early on. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. So obviously, I think we kind of touched on some of the general things with this game. I do want to look at two interesting secondary aspects of this. So number one, I'm looking at Wyoming's schedule from last year. Finished 9-4. Very good season. There's some interesting things to look at, though. So they beat Texas Tech to open the year 35-33 in double overtime. That was in Laramie. They beat Portland State the next week. Then they're at Texas, and it was a tie game at one point, but then Texas pulled away to win 31-10. Host New Appalachian State, they win. Host New Mexico, they win. Host Fresno State, they win. But then they go on the road at Air Force, lose by 7 points. At Boise State, lose by 32-7. Beat Colorado State at home, then go at UNLV and lose 34-14. Beat the crap out of Hawaii. And then their only road win of the year last year was a 42-6 win over a bad Nevada team. So this team is one team in Laramie, and it's another team on the road. And to add to that, pulling up the weather app on my iPhone here, on Saturday, the high is supposed to be 106. Jeez, I just hate the people with the loud cars, man. I cannot stand it.
What do you mean? They're the coolest. They're the coolest people alive.
I know you're a high school teacher, but you shouldn't be getting your car opinions from high schoolers. It's supposed to be like 100 degrees at kickoff, upper 90s at kickoff. That's just an adjustment that's going to be really tough when you're coming from Laramie, Wyoming, down to Arizona. I think that's something we can't really quantify. And I think that's going to be a real benefit for ASU in this first game, even more so than when they play Mississippi State, because even though it's not the same type of heat, it's still, they're practicing in freaking Mississippi. It's hot as F. I think those two factors that Wyoming last year, and this is with Andrew Peasley, who I think I saw him in like a preseason game. So he wasn't just some like bus driver quarterback. I'm sure he's gotten cut by now. I can't even see. Yeah, so he got cut by the Jets, but he made it that far. And now they have another guy coming in, Evan Svoboda. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. It's spelled Svoboda. And he's actually from Mesa, but limited last year, and who knows exactly how he'll do against the ASU defense we think should be pretty good, So I just think the fact, I know it's a dumb, being at home, it actually helps the home team, obvious point, but just the fact that Wyoming is, based on last year, was not a good road team, and they're playing in a temperature that's going to be at least 20 to 25 degrees hotter than what they're used to. That's just, if you're a Wyoming fan, those are negative things going against you,
Absolutely. And I was just looking through, reading some of Jay Sawville's comments, the Wyoming head coach, talking about the unfamiliarity, right? And I think that's a big element here. You've got, the transfer portal, the new roster, and then he's talking about opening games This is his quote. I'm looking at CBS Sports. He says, "Opening games are really hard when you don't know how people are going to use their players, and that's in traditional opening games. Now you add all the transfer elements to it. I really do think Wyoming, based on that, ASU is going to have the element of surprise here, right?
Yeah,
And the way that
theoretically.
Kenny Dillingham is able to, scheme up an offense and some of the things he did last year with catching teams off guard, and obviously that was a product of depleted personnel, but you would think that Dillingham is aware of that, and Dillingham knows, hey, we have not only the home field advantage, but the advantage of that unfamiliarity. So I just thought that comment was interesting. You also have the local element with Evan Svoboda. I think I said that right.
Yeah, why
Um,
not?
Started one game last season, but he played at Red Mountain, so you got the homecoming for him. But yeah, I do think that element of surprise coupled with the home game angle of this is pretty interesting and honestly plays into ASU's hands quite nicely.
Yeah, totally. So one other thing Wyoming has is their offensive coordinator, Jay Johnson, was the OC at Michigan State last year. So he would know some of Levitt's tendencies, theoretically. Now, I don't know how much that's really going to matter, especially it's a new offense. Levitt didn't really play that much last year, but obviously saw him at practice. So Wyoming won't come into this game and be surprised that Levitt is a good runner. Let me put it that way. They'll know, but that doesn't mean they'll be able to stop it or stop it to the level to win anyway. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Probably the best Wyoming offensive player or skill player at least is John Michael Gillenborg. He's a 6'5", 250 tight end, 3 touchdowns, 360 yards last year, which for a team like Wyoming, that's pretty good numbers. So he's definitely someone to watch for. But the fact that Wyoming doesn't have their top running back, and I just don't expect any Wyoming wide receiver to be a real threat to ASU defensively. I think ASU's defense should be in good position to have a really strong performance in game one.
100%. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head quite a bit here. They've got the right opponent. Honestly, a more desirable matchup here than just playing some. I talked about it a little earlier, but playing like a Southern Utah or some other school that you're double digit 20-point favorites over, and you don't really know what you have going into a big game against Mississippi State. They will probably be tested in this game, which I think is a good thing, right? You don't want the test to come too late and then you have no idea what to do. So, or no idea what you have. So, I think they should win this game. And I think they should win it in a way where they're going to have to fight for it a little bit and not one that, they're supposed to come in and blow the doors off of Wyoming.
Yeah. And I mean, this ASU team cannot have that mentality. And I don't think they do.
No, absolutely not. That's what I mean. This is a game where you have to, not that you don't respect your opponent when you're playing an FCS school, but you could definitely take them a little lightly, right? I don't think anybody's taking a Mountain West school lightly, especially a Mountain West school that, albeit with a coach that retired, won 9 games last year. So it's a test out of the gate. It's a test out of the gate, and I think that bodes really well for this team.
Well, it's particularly this specific ASU team that got destroyed by Fresno State last year at home. And there were some weird circumstances in that game. Obviously, I'm not going to deny that, but ultimately it was still a blowout loss. So there's no we looked past them, we didn't know. No, they should be treating this team like a Power 5 team. Honestly, Wyoming beat a Power 5 team last year. Now, again, it was in Laramie, but still. So, yeah, I do think if the ASU offense gets to 30 points in this game or higher, obviously, that would actually be a real okay, this offense could be pretty good if they put 31 points on Wyoming. So that is one thing to look out for. The defense, I think if the defense like holds them to 3 points or something, then that would be incredible. I'm not expecting that. But if the defense gives up like 20 points, then that's going to be kind of concerning. But again, it's also game one, so that you can kind of only take so much from it.
100%. It's going to be a good sort of measuring stick game, right? To kind of see where they're at and finally get a look, right? I that quote from Sawville stands out because, like him, like Wyoming, trying to game plan for this team, they really don't know what to expect, right? And we don't know what to expect. We have kind of an idea, but last year was at certain points, kind of duct taped and Elmer's glued together. That like we don't even really know what to expect when Dillingham has the personnel. Will he have the personnel? Will this look completely, So there's a lot of questions that we're asking too, especially with so much production leaving and so many shoes to fill outside of Scatabo and some of the other guys. But what is this team going to look like offensively and defensively, right? That's the unit where you would think they have some of that cohesion and familiarity under Brian Ward. So you're right. You don't want to see them give up, 24, 30 points, something like that to Wyoming. So a lot to gauge in this first game, and I think it'll be an accurate gauge. I think we're going to get a good feel for kind of what this team could be or where they're at currently, where they could still grow.
Yep. And this, I'm not taught that. This isn't really a commentary on what you've said, but more of some of the general ASU fan perspective. Although I haven't heard this too much, but like this is a losable game. Like this is 100% a game that you can lose, and it wouldn't be like that shocking, right? It would be more shocking if Wyoming won. Don't get me wrong, but an ASU loss would not be that surprising either. So
no, 100%. I completely agree with you. That's why I think it's such a good measuring game, right? Yep. They're playing a team that could realistically beat them. Going into Southern Utah, we didn't really think Southern Utah could beat ASU. It was a little closer than we thought it would be, and obviously the circumstances made that a weird game. But we weren't going into that game thinking there's a scenario ASU could lose this game. Same with when NAU comes to Tempe or whoever else it is that opens the season. We don't think there's a way they can lose those games. However, this game is definitely losable. You can't afford to come out slow. You have to hit the ground running if you're going to win this game at home. So I think that'll tell you a lot about where they're at, where the coaching staff is at. If this team comes out ready to play and looks bought in and looks locked in, I think we're onto something. So that's what I think I'm going to be watching for is how does the start look? Does it take until halftime to kind of kick it into high gear? What's the margin like if that happens? Yep. That sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I would love for this to be like a game where it kind of just feels like ASU is a 10-point lead the whole time. Whether that be football or basketball, any game like that where it's just like, I mean, obviously I'd love for an ASU, going away blowout. I don't think that's going to happen. But like if ASU can kind of maintain a 10-point lead throughout this, then that'll be a good step in the right direction. What's the score prediction you got for this one, Colton?
Let's see. They're just such a mixed bag. I have no idea. Snoggo's comments are like hit the nail on the head, man. That's like you don't know what they're gonna look like in years where college football didn't have its own version of free agency, and now it's just completely different. I think based on everything I've seen over the course of the offseason, I think I believe in what Dillingham has built. I think I believe in the foundation that he's laying and the buy-in, right, by the players. Yeah. I think that is going to play a big role in what they do in this game outside of personnel and schemes and all of those things, right? I think Dillingham can run an effective offense. Obviously, the defense has proven to be pretty formidable. I think they'll surprise a lot of people. It's either going to be they're either going to they're either going to win this game by 3 points or they're going to win it by like 17 points. I don't know if it's going to be like kick a field goal.
Totally see that.
Kick a field goal to go up by 10 with 4 minutes left. I don't really see it being one of those. I think we're either going to be really excited or really concerned. That's kind of how I view this. I mean, they could certainly lose. I don't know if they're going to. If they do lose, I think that it would be lose on a last-second field goal or, lose by 4 as you're driving down the field to go ahead, take the lead, and you don't get it. But I'm going to go with – I got to put my money where my mouth is with my Dillingham belief. I'm going to say they win this game by between 13 and 17 points, and they cover.
Oh, no, I'm looking for a score prediction. Final score.
Oh, final score. Okay.
Yeah.
Give me – let's see. We're trying to do math now. Give me is 31. I want to say, let's say 31 to 14. That's 17, right? No, 31-13. So give me an 18-point win.
31-13. Okay.
Yeah. Wait, no, 28-13. 28-13.
I would love that. So 31-13.
Give me back the field goal. The field goal makes me nervous. Make it 28-13.
28-13? Okay. Yeah. Either way, 28-13 I would be very happy with. And honestly, I wouldn't be like overjoyed with the 3-point win, but I would also be like, you know what, Wyoming's a tough team.
A win's a win.
First game.
Yeah.
Kinks, exactly. Yeah. So
yeah.
For me, I'm gonna go 24-16 ASU.
Okay. I like that.
I think this will be a game. I think by the end, it won't feel like Wyoming will be able to I think it'll be a closer score than the game plays out, if that kind of makes sense. I think ASU wins 24-16, but misses a field goal in there or something. So 24-16.
Are you thinking like a slow offensive start where the defense keeps them in and then the offense kind of kicks it in a little bit? Is that what that would be? Is that kind of where your head was?
I think more of I think ASU gets to 10 points pretty quickly.
Okay.
And then stalls a little bit. And then, just kind of makes its way through the rest of the game, I guess.
I like that. I like that. I think that's a good prediction. Also, I'm changing mine to 27-13.
27-13?
Yes. They're going to score 13. I like 2 field goals from ASU more than I like 4 touchdowns. So,
okay. Hey, that's more scoring drives. So,
yeah.
All right. So yours is 27-13 for Colton, 24-16 for Mark. All right. Well, hopefully we're right about that. It would be bad if we're not, but we'll see. That's why they play the games. All right. We're going to predict ASU's big schedule for the whole season shortly, but we have 3 kind of mini stories to get to. So we're going to get the bad news out of the way. I am looking at an article on the Orange County Register written by Dan Albano, titled "Quarterback Michael Butter Tollefson Ineligible to Play for Tustin This Season." The dual threat senior and ASU commit enrolled in Tustin in late March after leaving JSerra. Basically, the reason why he is ineligible, from what it looks like, is just because it took a bit longer for him to transfer. He transferred late in the process, but this is bad news for ASU. I'm sure that Butter Tollefson will be able to find a way to play competitive high school football this year. But if he doesn't, you don't want just a year off of high school football, especially if it's not an injury. So this worries me. and maybe it doesn't matter at all. Like, I mean, he's already committed, so it's not like from that perspective, it's not terrible. But I just, uh, you just would rather this not happen. So if you have
Yeah, I
any
think.
thoughts on this, we can move on. But
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it real quick. I think this, and I remember when, because let's see, has been ruled ineligible to play for the Tillers this season. It looks like he was trying to transfer to a different high school. Is that right? Is that how this happened?
uh, I don't, I haven't like,
Because it's not. I
this is
want to
great
say it's like a
podcasting, just reading.
transfer issue, right? I'm
Yeah, I mean,
in the.
I have no idea how the high school transfer stuff works. I'll be honest.
Oh, the seniors transfer. Okay, has been ruled. Who enrolled at the school in late March after leaving J. Sarah. So it looks like he did try to transfer, even though he did it in March, right? Which I don't know. This is the one thing that,
Yeah,
and I've seen it. I've seen it quite a bit with even like local Twitter. Like Twitter for high school football is a
right.
really
Oh,
weird space. What'd you say?
yeah,
I was just
yeah.
saying
I
Twitter,
agree.
high school football Twitter is a very, very strange space. Um, and I think that the way that college football is treated now with the transfer portal and the NIL stuff and everything, the autonomy that college football players and programs now have has kind of trickled down a little bit to this high school level, right? And I'm not saying it's
Yep.
100% to blame for all of this stuff, but I remember a prominent recruit in Arizona going from Pinnacle to Chandler to here to there and just bouncing all over the place, right? It
Yeah.
kind of seems unheard of. Like I remember being in school, you didn't transfer, you played your year, all 4 years there, and you
And
moved
this was
on. And
10, 12 years
it was
ago,
years
too.
ago. It
Like,
wasn't even.
they're not.
This isn't even like a old man yells at cloud thing. I'm 10 years removed from high school. It's just the
Yeah.
landscape now is so strange, and these kids they're kids, man. Like
Yeah.
to deal with this level of responsibility, or I guess to be handed this level of autonomy off the field instead of just focusing on I'm here, I'm going to play the best ball that I can here. I think that has overcomplicated a lot for a lot of these kids, right?
Yeah.
And
No, for
I
sure.
do think that's a byproduct of the landscape of college football and the way that coaches handle it, the way that the media handles it. There's a lot of pressure on 14 to 18-year olds, and that level of autonomy at that young of an age can do way more harm and in my opinion very little good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really sad to see. It looks like it was a transfer issue. I don't want to speculate. Who knows why he was transferring? Who knows what was going on? Um, but I just know that you never used to see this level of transfers. Um, you saw them sometimes, but this is like on a whole nother level, and almost the marketing that goes with it, right? Kids tweeting stuff out, and you know, respect my decision, and it's like you're moving high schools.
I,
I don't
yeah,
know.
dude.
It's just all the stuff they're seeing, all the stuff that goes on with college players on the internet and trying to emulate that. I don't know. I don't want to sound too like ranty here. It's a very, very strange time, and high school sports Twitter is extremely strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, I just could imagine being in high school, and I just wouldn't want this much, uh, just hassle. Like, that's just so much having to go to a new school every time. Like with college, I get it much more so because it's kind of your career, and at this point, like you're good enough to play college football, so it's like I get it more so.
Right. And
But
academics are completely different. Like
Right.
you could be finished with your major, or you could be moving on to something where you only have to take 3 more classes to finish
Yep.
it's not a high school workload where you
Online.
still have to
Yeah.
hit certain credits, you know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
I completely agree.
And I want to double down on the like. I guess we just don't. I don't know. Like the level to which some people care about high school sports,
It's
it
odd.
just is mind blowing to me. And it's one thing if you're in a. I mean, I still kind of don't get it if you're in a small town, but I get it a little bit more.
Hmm.
But if you're not in a small town, then that's just so much weirder to me. So
I
that's a whole different topic. I'm not, but like,
Yeah. No, I get
you
it if you
know,
have like kids who play, right? That's
of course,
obviously be
yeah,
there for your kids, but people with no investment outside of living near a school, it's just odd to me. But I mean, we
yeah,
see it, man. It's massive now, and Arizona's high school sports scene. I know we're talking about California here, but I mean, a lot
it's
of
the same thing. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of the guys at ASU is going to be looking or will be looking into are products of this high school sports landscape in Arizona, and it's
yeah.
strange here too, man. Like there's a
Well,
lot
and
of
so many players transfer into Arizona high schools too from out of state, like
right.
Dylan Raiola, and then he finished his high school career in some other state. It's just
Yeah, I think he
yeah.
went from Pinnacle. He was who I was referencing earlier. I think he went from
Oh,
Pinnacle
okay.
to Chandler to
Yeah.
Nebraska, committed to Ohio State, committed to Georgia. He was like baby Gronk before baby Gronk, dude. Like it
Now he's
was
imitating
wild.
Patrick Mahomes in everything he
Yeah,
does.
it's
Good
again,
luck there.
it's all that the trickle down. It's the trickle down and
Yeah.
kids who feel like they're emulating it when really it's you end up in situations like the one we're seeing here. Again, don't want to speculate. Who knows why he transferred and all of that other stuff. Every situation is different. I'm a firm believer that high school football should be let's play high school football, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I don't know, but then
Yeah.
again, I the reason I didn't go Division 1 for football was because I wanted to avoid all of this. That's the only reason I didn't. So
Of course.
yeah,
Well, anyways, switching it back to Butter Tollefson, I hope that just from an ASU fan perspective, I hope that he just gets to play football somewhere this year, so he doesn't.
100%. Yeah,
And for his
but
own,
I think you mentioned a year off is really tough to bounce back from. So
yeah, especially when it's like maybe it doesn't matter, but like if it's an injury, it's just way more um, understandable or just
yeah,
commonplace, I guess. So anyway, done with that. Hopefully, Butter Tollefson can play this year, and there aren't any more weird high school scheduling stuff that he has to deal with. So on to basketball. I'm going to present. No, share the screen. Oh wait, no, that's that's not what I'm going to do. Hold on.
are we looking at the UConn stuff?
Well, I'm going to get into ASU's
Oh, with
season.
Duke.
Not yeah, not even with Duke. What?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm
Well, just their
throwing.
whole screen layout. We're new to StreamYard, so I just want to share. Well, here let's talk about Let's talk about UConn first while I'm getting into this. So, Brett McMurphy reports, and it's all over the internet that this is on Monday. Big 12 presidents and ADs heard data and value points today regarding UConn as a potential Big 12 member. Sources told Action Network. There was never any plan to vote on UConn today, so League will continue gathering info on Huskies' impact to Big 12 by joining as a football member in 2031 and non-football sports as early as 2026. Sources said. So I'll share my thoughts on this first while we get this the screen sharing going. But I just I am not that excited about UConn potentially coming to the Big 12. I just the fact
Yeah.
that their football program is so bad that they have to get it up to speed in 7 years. I think that is the big red flag in this. And I just think you're adding a horrible football school into your league that you will have to, divvy up the pot a little bit with them in. And their basketball program, both men's and women's basketball programs are amazing. The Big 12 is already going to be the top basketball conference. You have Kansas, Baylor, Arizona, Houston, like you have these teams already. So I don't know. Maybe this is just coming from an ASU men's basketball fan's perspective, and it's like I just don't think adding UConn really makes that big of a difference. But I mean, it'll be cool to watch them if they're in the league. Don't get me wrong, but and another thing is I don't think UConn they're not just going to win back-to-back championships all the time. That's not how it works. So that's my thoughts on it. I wouldn't be super upset if they do come in. I kind of understand why, but I just think the football brand is so bad. Worse than U of A has ever been, worse than Kansas has ever been. They're one of the worst teams in the group of 5 level. This would be like adding New Mexico State football into the Big 12. So I don't like that aspect of it. And I think the fact that they have to wait till 2031 to get here is telling. So what are your
100%.
thoughts on it, Colton?
No, I agree, man. The first thing I thought when I saw that was just basketball super conference, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be absurd. It shouldn't happen. So from a basketball perspective, just another unbelievably elite team that you're going to have to contend with and probably see somewhat often, right? Which isn't great. And then you're right, from a football perspective, just not the polar opposite of their basketball brand, right? So
polar, yes,
yeah,
absolutely, yes.
So I don't know. You're getting the prestige of their basketball program and all that will do for the recognition of your conference and ultimately boosting resumes. We talk all the time about losing 11 games in the Big 12 could still earn you a 6 seed in the tournament, something like that.
Right.
So that the strength of your schedule is going to go through the roof if you're playing in a conference with UConn. And then, I mean, as far as football goes, I know the Big 12 has been looking for that, with the rumblings of Florida State and Clemson, been looking for that, maybe that anchor program a little bit. They have some solid top of the line programs with, well, I guess it's not even they anymore. The Big 12 has some solid top of the line programs with, Oklahoma State and West Virginia has been up there a little for, some seasons and Kansas State and, so on and so forth. But you don't really have that perennial playoff contender that you would have in a Clemson or a Florida State now that they're kind of back outside of their trip to Dublin. But it doesn't really give you that for the football element. But I mean, basketball, what it'll bring. It's kind of just, it's described for me by the contrast between the two programs. That's kind of how I would sum it up.
And you mentioned the strength of schedule aspect. I don't think adding UConn meaningfully changes that. I just don't. I think the league is going to be looked at basically the exact same with or without UConn because it's already so strong of a basketball conference already.
And, I mean, very well could be. You're right. It's already a super conference. And at that point, it's kind of like if you're already viewed in such high regard, how much higher could it be, right? By adding one team. No, that makes sense. I agree with that.
I would much rather have UConn if they were let's say they've been in the MAC for a few years and they're kind of like a 7-5 MAC team, for example, which they haven't even been. They would be at the bottom of any, that's how bad their football program's been. And a basketball team that made the Elite Eight often or something. Maybe I wouldn't want to anyway. It's just tough just because their football program is so bad. I don't know. So hope. I mean, in 7 years is a long time to get it up to speed, but like, who even knows if ASU will be in the Big 12 7 years from now? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a like Yormark's been trying to get this to happen for a bit too. So I think it's also telling that the university presidents are not like jumping to add UConn either. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Now staying with basketball quickly, let's touch on the ASU non-conference schedule, which has finally been finalized. So there's the Duke game you were talking about. Exhibition at Cameron Indoor. I mentioned this on the last show, but thank God that this game is an exhibition game. Like, thank God.
Yeah.
I know, like, I would be much more preferable of it being a regular season game if the schedule wasn't so difficult, but the schedule is difficult. So like, it'll be fun to see ASU play Duke and Cooper Flag and those guys, but not upset that it won't count in the standings. And then their only true road game is at Gonzaga. That'll be a fun game. Home schedule is pretty lacking. They host Idaho State on November 5th. November 17th, they host St. Thomas. November 20th, they host Cal Poly. And December 3rd, they host San Diego. Those are all games you pretty much need to win. And then, 8th is Santa Clara and Vegas. They play Grand Canyon University at the Footprint Center on November 14th. That'll be a fun game. New Mexico and Palm Springs, either USC or St. Mary's the next day, late November. Play Florida and Atlanta on the 14th, and then play UMass. I do not like this December 21st schedule. Play UMass in Springfield on the 21st of December, 4 days before Christmas. Don't like that part of it, but I like the overall difficulty, I guess. What are some things that jump out at you at this schedule, Colton?
Yeah. Razor thin margin for error, right? You can't, playing Gonzaga and possibly St. Mary's, Grand Canyon. New Mexico's tough, good program. Florida's a good program. You've got schools that you can't really afford to drop the games you should win, right? Then ASU basketball has been prone to those slip-ups in the past. So those games that you're favored
like one per year. Yeah.
Right. You can't have that this year. You have to take care of the games that you are projected to win. When you are favored, you have to make it happen.
Yep.
And it's college basketball. I get it. In the non-con, though, you can't have those slip-ups, right? You have to take care of the business when the opportunity's there. So that when you get to the Big 12, maybe there's a little more – you have a little more wiggle room should you have an off night and you mentioned that game in Springfield on December 21st. Anytime you get that close to Christmas, I'm remembering the San Francisco game 2 years ago. Anytime you get that close to Christmas, you're prone for, a bit of maybe a stumble, but try to take care of business at home. Obviously super winnable home schedule there outside of the Grand Canyon game, but I mean, that's Footprint Center, technically neutral. Is that New Mexico game? Does that say California?
New Mexico, it's all the gold games are neutral site. So
right. I don't know where the New Mexico one.
It's in Palm Springs.
Okay. Yeah, so they're not going too far either outside. I mean, even Gonzaga is Pacific Northwest. You're not flying cross country, it doesn't look like. Oh, well,
no, the furthest games they play other than Duke are the last two, Florida and Atlanta, and then at UMass it's part of like the Basketball Hall of Fame tournament or something. So I guess the fact that it's like a special tournament or showcase or whatever is encouraging. Like, I think that'll block some of the it's right before Christmas stuff as opposed to just going on the road to play San Francisco.
Right.
But it's still tough. it's still a tough game, So
100%. You can't look past it. But yeah, a lot of neutral site stuff and nothing super far until you get to those Florida and UMass games. It doesn't look like so. That's encouraging. But again, you have to make it to conference play without any critical stumbles in the non-con. So that's what I'm looking for. And the roster, I mean, it should be one of the more talented we've seen in a while. So hopefully,
dude, I can't wait to watch this roster.
I know, man, it should be awesome. And we've talked about Bobby Hurley and the resources he's had to work with ad nauseum on this podcast. So those excuses aren't really in play here. Now it's his job. Now it's his job to coach these guys and make that talent translate to wins in an incredibly difficult basketball conference. So that's where I'm thinking that razor thin margin comes into play.
For sure. Before we move on to predicting ASU's schedule, I do want to I want to push back against one point you made with the ASU basketball schedule. I think they can lose one of these 4 home games if they beat Gonzaga, or if they beat I don't know what Grand Canyon's going to be. Let's say they beat New Mexico and Florida, but they lose to St. Thomas, and then they win the rest of their home games and split the rest of their I guess my point with this is, like, I think they can lose one of those 4 home games so long as they make up for it with other really good wins in the non-con. That would be my take on that. So, but
no, I agree with that. I think that's a good point. It's always going to be that numbers game too, right? If you go out and beat a Gonzaga or New Mexico or GCU or whatever it is, then you're definitely right. That margin for error gets a little wider. So, just take care of business where you can and let the chips fall where they may.
Correct. But it is an exciting non-conference, at least. So that's one thing to look forward to, if nothing else. All right, switching back to football. Got the ESPN schedule for ASU up on the screen here. At least it should be. I don't know if you can see it, but it says it's showing. There it is. Okay, so let's pick the games, Colton. We have Wyoming done already. I have it as 24-16. We don't have to give scores for these. You have it as 27-13. Mississippi State, ASU, according to us, enters the game against Mississippi State 1-0. Colton, what do you think happens in that game?
Okay. Do we have? Okay, so it's a night.
Need to get super detailed.
No, I know. I'm trying to think here.
Yep, night game.
Night game. I trying to pull up this. I want to see the point spread. I doubt it's out yet, but sometimes they get 2 to 3 weeks in before they do it. You'd think these are somewhat evenly matched teams, right? Not at the top of the Big 12, definitely formidable. My gut probably says ASU drops this game just because I think that they're going to come out and play pretty well against Wyoming. They're still trying to get healthy. I think if they're able to get past those injuries a little quicker, right, if a lot of those guys come back for this game, who knows? I mean, ESPN's FPI has it at 51% Mississippi State, 48.9% ASU. So literally a 2% difference here in percentage to win the game. So if it's that close of a toss-up, this is how so many of these games are going to be because this conference is so deep. You know what? I think the home team gets the edge in a game this close. I'll lean home team. I'll say ASU wins it by the thinnest of margins, maybe like a field goal or something like that.
Okay. I agree with you that ASU wins this game. Mississippi State was not good last year. They bring in a new head coach. I don't think that like this isn't like playing. This will probably be one of the bottom 3 teams in the SEC this year, and
Yeah.
it's still going to be a road environment. I think the crowd for this game will be pretty good, unless if ASU like loses by 10 points to Wyoming, then the crowd will not be that good. But I think the crowd will most likely be pretty good for this Mississippi State game, and I think that'll help as well. And I think it might just be a little bit of, after playing Wyoming, like you're just kind of shake off the rust a bit for the second game. So I think I kind of agree with your assessment on Mississippi State. I don't think Mississippi State's defense is that good either. Could be totally wrong, but
Yeah.
I think that'll be a win on national television. So I think we can get to 2-0.
Look at
I
that.
wonder if ASU reaches 2-0, do you think they could be ranked entering week 3?
It would obviously depend. It always depends on what happens in the rankings, right?
Yeah.
But I would lean probably not, just because
I
of the
agree.
teams that they've beaten. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think it would take a little bit more.
No, they would need to like drop like 50 points in this game and like win by like a 30-point margin or something, which that's not going to happen.
13 of the top 25 lose in week 2, who knows? Who knows what happens?
No. Now, if ASU beats Texas State on the road, which is 5 days after this game, then I bet they would be ranked.
Is that a Thursday?
It's a Thursday.
Ooh.
September 12th at 4:30 p.m. our time. I do not have ASU winning this game. I think ASU loses this game and goes to 2-1.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
It's a tough spot.
Their first road game of the year, first time traveling, this group together, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Texas State, didn't they have a pretty good year last year, if I'm not mistaken, in the Sun Belt?
And there's a lot of buzz that they could win the Sun Belt, and I've seen like one person pick them to be the Group of 5 representative in the playoff. I don't think they're gonna. I think Texas State's defense isn't that good, but their offense is really good. So We'll see, but I just don't have ASU winning this game.
Yeah, I'll go with you there. I think this will be a test for the defensive side. I think this would be if they step up and they play a really good game. Then who knows what happens here? But I think you're right. First road game of the year.
Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night on a short week. I think ASU drops this one.
Yeah. So we both have it at 2-1. First Big 12 conference game is 9 days later. So they do enter the game at Texas Tech with a bit more rest. I think most people see this game as a loss. I agree with most people. I think this will be a kind of a game that teases us a little bit, where I think there will be spots in this game where ASU looks like it'll be able to win, but it won't be able to get the job done. So I have ASU losing a kind of a pretty competitive game in Lubbock to fall to 2-2.
Yeah, I agree with that. I take ASU to lose that one. Are they? And I guess I wouldn't know. Would they stay in Texas over?
No, they're gonna fly back.
Would they fly back? Okay, I guess it's long enough. I'm like, I wonder what they would do there, but yeah, I say 2-2 after the first 4 weeks, which gives us some margin for error too in our predictions, right? They drop Mississippi State, then beat Texas State, we're still perfect. So 2-2.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, let's say a magical genie shows up and it says, "Hey, Colton, ASU football will start out the year 2-2. Will you take it?" But they can only start out 2-2. They can't start out 3-1. I wouldn't take it. I think ASU can get to 2-2 just regardless. But if this same scenario was like ASU will start out 3-1, I would take it because starting out 3-1 it would in terms of making a bowl game, it would make that so much easier. However, I just
Yeah,
don't think that's going to happen.
yeah, and I think you need those 3 games are so important when you look at the rest of the schedule. I think if they drop Texas State, the road to a bowl berth becomes even more complicated, right? If
Yeah.
they're 2-1 going into Texas Tech, I don't think they can beat Texas Tech. And then you go number 22 Kansas, number 12 Utah. So,
Yeah.
which I don't know how you can project those as wins if you're just doing a wins loss exercise, right? So,
Well,
I
okay, so you see kind of Texas State as the hinge game for ASU potentially making a bowl. I have a different game as that. I'm not going to say.
okay.
But either way, we both have ASU at 2 and
One of
2.
the hinge games, right? If we're looking at a gate with 2 hinges, I would say one of those hinges is probably the Texas State game.
Okay, that's fair. So regardless, we both have ASU 2 and 2 entering its 5th game of the season. So they do get a bye the week of September 28th. They will be off. And then on October 5th, time is not decided yet. They host Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
I have this game as a win for ASU.
Wow. Okay.
I think that Kansas is going to be a little bit worse than people think this year. I think there's a decent chance Kansas is not ranked at this point. And I'm going to kind of tie in my theory about Wyoming coming down to Tempe and having the weather be a factor. I think you could kind of see a version of this as well with Kansas. You know, it's October at that point in Kansas, which it's not going to be like horrible weather, but it'll still probably be like 90, 100 degrees in Phoenix at that point.
Yeah.
So that could be a shock. And I think Kansas has 6 straight games. It'll be their 6th of 6 games. So they'll enter less rested. And, you know, I think people didn't expect ASU to beat UCLA last year. They didn't expect ASU to almost beat UW. Some didn't expect them to beat Wazoo. I bet we didn't predict them to win that game. So I think they beat Kansas.
That's a good prediction. I like that. I think. Let's see. I think I could definitely see that. I would not be shocked if they took one of these games, the Utah or the Kansas game. Right? Back-to-back home games coming off of the bye.
It would probably be better if you gave a different prediction.
No,
because we can't all have the same.
I'm just looking at it here. You know what? Give me ASU to upset Utah, and they lose to Kansas. I'll flip because you're probably going to take them to lose to Utah, right?
I do think they'll lose to Utah.
Okay,
I get the logic
take though. Too, but I'll flip it.
Okay. All right.
I do like that October in Tempe back-to-back home game thing.
The Friday night for Utah, that adds a little spice to it.
Right.
I don't see ASU beating Utah, but I get that point.
All right. So you had them beating Texas Tech, right? Or Kansas?
No.
Okay.
We both have them at 3-3 at this point.
All right. I'll deviate. I swear.
Okay. Well,
I already did deviate, but
you already did.
Yeah.
The following week they go at Cincinnati. I have this game as a extremely frustrating loss for ASU. I think it's a game you're going to look back and be like, we could have easily won that game. And I just think it'll be some road issues. I don't think the weather will be in play, really. It could be, though. So I have them losing at Cincinnati, and it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But
yeah, I
have them losing that game.
I know this is going to make you mad because it's going to be, but my rationale is going to be completely different. If I'm picking them to beat Utah, right?
Yeah.
I can't just ignore the classic ASU let down off of a signature win,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's
So,
real.
and especially going on the road, it's a longer week, right? You get the
One
the
day.
Friday, the
Yeah.
Saturday, whatever. One day can make all the difference, but I think you're still going to get that letdown. That's what ASU is known for. Um,
That is true.
Pulling off that signature win and then reminding everybody that we're still ASU. So give me a loss to Cincinnati. We're both 3-4, and the deviation is coming.
Okay. Um, then we have a bye the following weekend of the 26th of October. Then we head to Oklahoma State. Colton, what do you have this game at? ASU enters 3-4 at Oklahoma State.
And you have the little bye, then you're going on the road. Does that say tickets as low as $117?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what these like.
That's absurd.
I don't know
Okay.
how these are actually like.
Yeah, I think
I don't
it's
like.
Vivid Seats, but anyway, um, yeah, I don't see. Depending on how ASU's rush defense looks, and I think their front seven should be formidable. Oklahoma State is going to be a real tough team to beat this year. I don't see how they win this game. I'm going with a loss here, especially on the road.
Okay, I have it as a win.
There you go.
I
See?
think they beat. Yeah, I think they beat Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State. There's two reasons I'm a little like. I took their under 8.5 wins yesterday. I don't think Alan Bowman is that good of a quarterback. So that always keeps the worst team in the game theoretically. And
Yeah.
I saw Oklahoma State play ASU last year, and they did not look that good. So, and another thing with Oklahoma State is they won a ton of close games last year, which is great, but like that stuff does catch up with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ASU, and this would be a defensive win. I think ASU can come in, catch an Oklahoma State team that is overlooking them most
Yeah.
likely, and I think they can beat Oklahoma State. So I have them getting to win, loss, loss. Win. I have them getting to 4-4 here, and you have them at 3-5, correct?
Right.
With their only win being over Utah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. After that, they host UCF.
That's another win for me.
You have that as a win. Okay.
Another.
I have that as a loss.
Okay.
So we both have them at 4-5.
By completely different routes here, Mark.
Yes. Yes, we do.
What do you think about Kansas State? Are you going to say loss? Because I'm going to say
No
loss.
chance. Yeah, Kansas State is the only game I see on this schedule where I look at it and there is a 0% chance of ASU winning that game.
Yeah.
Like I can kind of like twist in my head into, but maybe they can beat Utah, maybe they can beat U of A. It's going to be, well, for one, it's going to be late November in Manhattan, Kansas. So like it's going to be cold. Kansas State's good. I don't have them winning the league, but they're good. And yeah, that's just going to be no. So that would drop them to 4-6 for both of us, right?
Yeah, 4-6.
And then the next weekend on November 23rd, they host BYU. I have this as a win for ASU.
I also have it as a win.
Okay. Yeah, I think BYU. Yeah, I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're going to be that good, and they didn't really like. When you're BYU, you can only do so much in the transfer portal as well.
Right.
And I saw a recent Twitter post of it was ranking the each school by their average high school recruit ranking, and BYU was pretty low. So I just think that's a game that ASU is capable of winning and will win.
100%. Plus, that gets us to a scenario where ASU gets to play U of A for bowl eligibility, which is the most fun scenario I think we could ask for this season, right?
Uh, I mean, I think the most fun scenario would be ASU already having 6 wins entering that game. But
But
I
like the
get
most,
your
if
yeah.
yeah, okay. I think truthfully, playing U of A for that sixth win would be more intense than the bowl game.
Oh, 100%.
So that's why
100.
I'm like, that would be like
Yeah, I see your point. I see
the
your point.
celebration of them if they were to beat U of A would probably, you would think, still be ranked around that time, right? They should have a pretty solid season,
They
depending on the
should.
fallout.
They
With
should. Yeah.
you would think,
I would say they were most likely ranked at that point, but we don't, who knows,
yeah,
right?
who
Like
knows what happens. But either
if
way,
Fafita goes down, then not
you're
that he
five
will.
and six going into a game against U of A. You're two programs that have been moving in opposite directions. If you can kickstart, well, I guess the rebuild has already been kickstarted. Let me rephrase. If you can add a brick to the foundation by beating your in-state rival to clinch bowl eligibility, I think there would be a lot of excitement about Kenny Dillingham and what he's doing.
Absolutely. Do
So,
you have
for
that
the sake
happening?
for the sake of the scenario and me manifesting it, I'm going to say they beat U of A to go 6-6.
Okay. I love that. I do not agree. I think it'll be a close loss. I think Tetaroa McMillan it makes a few plays in this game. I think he is the best player, I think, in the Big 12, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the chance to be the best top wide receiver taken in the draft. And I think he just makes 2 or 3 plays in this game that are the difference. So I have ASU losing that game to drop to 5-7.
So you're
But
going 5-7. I'm going 6-6.
yes,
What is
that's pretty
their
reasonable.
total
Those
at
are
it?
two reasonable records.
Yeah.
We're not drinking the Kool-Aid all the way.
No. What is their like total on the books right now? Do we
It's
know?
like 4.5.
Oh, then I think we should both take that.
I already took one that was to win more than 4. So we'll
Ooh,
see. But these first 2 games are very crucial in that. Um,
100%.
yeah, I feel good about my predictions. I think both of us correctly identify that at Cincinnati game as a pretty crucial game in this season,
Yeah.
right? Like it's going to be. So I when I ranked the games last week by importance, I put Mississippi State, Texas State, and Cincinnati in the you need to win 2 out of these 3 games to go bowling.
Yeah.
And how it played out, if they had won, according to my prediction, if they had beaten Texas State or Cincinnati, then that would get them to 6-6. So that's where I have it. You have them beating Utah and U of A to get Colton. That would be the most satisfying 6-6 of ASU football history if it happens the exact way that you foresee it.
and
Because
we all know
you have them starting out. You have them winning 4 Big 12 games, right? Because you have them winning their last 3 out of 4 Big 12 games.
yeah,
You
UCF,
have them starting
BYU,
out,
U of A. That would
yeah.
be momentum going into next season,
Oh, I mean, if it plays out the way, I
which
mean,
it's going to.
of course.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, just think of the amount. Obviously, UCF, no, but in your prediction, just think of the amount of overlap there is just in like social circles of Utah, and then especially BYU and U of A fans in the Valley. Like for ASU to go 3-0 against those 3, that would be awesome. And I know you didn't like predict that with that in mind, but that would be pretty cool. And
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
so obviously 6-6 would be awesome. Like that would be an awesome record for ASU.
That's probably the ceiling.
How would you feel? You think it's their ceiling?
Maybe 7 wins would be their absolute ceiling. I don't think it's possible I think it'd be extremely rare that they win more than 6. But 6 is for me, like within the realm of possibility, but still extremely overachieving.
Okay. I don't see 6 as extremely overachieving. I see it as slightly overachieving. I'd see 7-5 is because I do think 7-5 is possible, but I think it's just unlikely.
Yeah.
But I think we're both kind of on the same page. Let's say 4 months from now, ASU finished the season 5-7. How would you feel if they went 5-7 this year?
Well, that's a, what, 2-win improvement, right?
It's a 2-win improvement, but you're still not going bowling.
No, and to me, man, the bowl games outside of, and now that the playoff exists, they have even less importance. I
Right.
guess it means more for the players because you get to, go to these locations and be treated to all this stuff, and there's some buildup for the game and whatnot. But it really does just feel like an exhibition to me outside of like,
Well, yeah.
because ASU, if they go bowling, they're going to the Boca Raton Bowl or something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we're not looking at the Alamo Bowl or one of the bowls that will become the top bowls now that all of the other games will be playoff games. But yeah, I mean, it would be a step, and this was always billed as a rebuild that wouldn't happen
Yeah.
super quick, right? So to me, 5-7 would be like, okay, it's progress. You moved forward.
Yeah.
They didn't win 2 games. They didn't win 4 games. 5
Yeah.
games that's a decent step forward, right? That's
And it's
2-win improvement. You almost got to 500. That's a logical next step. And then I think a lot of pressure would be on the program to, at the very least, get to a bowl game. The bowl game would need to be their floor in year 3.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So where it's to me, it's not so much about like playing in a bowl game. It's not so much about the actual bowl game. Getting to 6-6 is more about you were good enough, you were able to qualify for a bowl game. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Okay.
It's not
That
so
makes
much
sense.
about it's not so much about the actual bowl game that's played on the field. It's about, hey, like you met this threshold to get to a bowl game. You know what I'm saying?
No, for
So,
sure.
and
I get
yeah,
that. That makes sense.
yeah. And then when it comes to 5-7, I agree with you because it's obviously it's improvement, but it also shows clear progress, right? If they
Right.
go 4-8, I mean, how much different do we really feel about the program this time next year if they go 4-8? Like, not
Right.
that different, really. Like, had they like, uh, I've told this story to some friends. Like, as you know, like I root for UW football as well, just because I grew up in Washington and that was my team prior to ASU. I was not rooting for ASU in that game against UW because I didn't want a bad ASU team to mess up their season. And that was a weird game to watch with that perspective because ASU probably should have won that game. But like, had ASU won that game, what they would have gone 4-8 last year instead of 3-9. Like, that wouldn't have changed anything about the season, honestly. Like, people wouldn't be thinking of ASU differently if they went 4-8 last year,
Right.
right? Like, now if they went 5-7, people would think of them differently. But I do think going 4-8 and 3-9 is just kind of interchangeable. Like, they're both, you're not going bowling, but you're also not like a complete disaster where you go 1-11 or something. So yeah, so that's why getting to 5-7 is a big. It's a. I think most fans are like, let's just get to that level, and maybe I won't be jumping for joy that we went 5-7, but I can at least be rest assured that
It's
things
a
are.
watermark.
Yeah,
That's how I view it. Your
yeah,
watermark gets a little higher, right?
yeah,
So
yes,
I mean, we had to tear it all down
yeah,
effectively with all of the Herm Edwards stuff and the sanctions and all of that other stuff. So now it's about, you mentioned it, recognizable progress.
yeah.
So 5 wins to me is the next logical step.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay, let's just who do you think plays in the Big 12 championship game and who wins? That'll be our
Okay.
only other prediction. I can start out first so you can think about it. If
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, I've thought about this. I think Utah goes 11-1. I do not have their one loss. I don't know what their one loss is going to be. I don't have it being
ASU.
ASU.
Okay.
No, this is my prediction. I have them going 11-1, and they face a 9-3 Iowa State team. and I think Iowa State wins. I have Iowa State winning the Big 12 in an upset, I guess, beating Utah. So go
Nice.
Cyclones, I guess.
Nice. Well, I think Utah is still probably the best team in the Big 12, top to
Yeah.
bottom, right? So I'm still going to
I
take them.
mean, I kind of agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still going to take them to go to the conference championship game, although they've dropped a game to mighty ASU, right?
Yeah.
For the sake of this, for the sake of getting wacky. Actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to get wacky. Let's go. Hang on. I don't want to look foolish here. There's no divisions, right? Any two teams can play each other.
I'm almost certain that's yeah. Any two
Okay.
teams can play each other.
All right. I'm still learning. I'm new to this conference. Give me Kansas State, Utah. Kansas State wins.
Okay. Do you have a record for either of those teams, or
Give me 2 losses for Utah
okay?
and 2 losses for Kansas State.
So it's 2 10-2 teams that play.
Yes, and the winner is Kansas State, and they go to the playoff.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, hopefully everything we said comes true, even though I guess that's impossible because we have conflicting game results. But
yeah,
this was fun. This was a good little window into the league and window into ASU. I'm nervous. I just don't want to be sitting here next week and talking about a loss to Wyoming, because that could just kill so much momentum of this season, at least from the outside perspective. And I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with another loss to a Group of 5 school. It's been 2 years in a row already. So
yeah. Well, Marcus, if it makes you feel any better, I don't think they will.
I hope you're right. It's just that it's a non-zero outcome. But yeah, I think this season we just have no idea what to expect, honestly.
100%, man. We won't know. I don't think we'll have a good feel for what to expect from this team until maybe 3 games in, until that Texas State game.
I think it could be even. I think we after it might be entering November. It's just
it could easily be that. There's a wide array of outcomes, I think.
And another thing, I hear ASU enters the year facing. They have 5 teams that are currently ranked on the schedule right now. I am going to a prediction I have is by the end of the year, when the final playoff rankings come out, they will have played fewer than 5 ranked teams. I think one of these ranked teams is not going to finish ranked by the end of the year, and it might be more, and another one pops up. But none of these teams, maybe aside from Utah, are world beaters, and that could open a door for ASU. So we'll see. All right, Colton, thanks for hopping on, or Stevie, I should say.
Yeah, we'll see what I have for you next week. I'll get in my bag and see.
For sure. All right. Well, for all of you watching and listening, thank you for consuming our podcast. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Sun Devils. And recording.